In the remote, forgotten town of Ashenwood, a malevolent secret lay buried beneath the decaying earth. It was a place where the living walked among the dead, and the boundary between life and death blurred into a chilling nightmare. On the outskirts of Ashenwood Cemetery, a time-worn willow tree stood sentinel, its twisted branches reaching toward the heavens like skeletal fingers. For generations, the townsfolk whispered tales of the cursed willow, believing it to be the epicenter of their town's darkness. One moonless night, Chelsea, an adventurous teenager with an insatiable appetite for excitement, gathered her friends beneath the shadow of the willow. The air grew heavy with dread as they conducted a forbidden séance, hoping to communicate with the spirit said to haunt the graveyard. As Chelsea chanted incantations, an unnatural chill enveloped the group, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. The old willow tree groaned in protest, and from the surrounding graves, the living dead clawed their way to the surface, their tattered burial clothes stained with the soil of the afterlife. The once silent cemetery echoed with the agonized moans of the reanimated corpses. Chelsea and her friends screamed in terror as they realized their horrifying mistake. Trapped in the midst of the undead, they desperately fought to escape the relentless grasp of skeletal hands. The moon cast an eerie glow upon the scene, revealing the twisted, contorted faces of the living dead. Each one bore a grotesque semblance to the people they had once been, their eyes vacant, yet brimming with malevolence. They moved with unnatural swiftness, driven by an insatiable hunger for the warmth of the living. Ashenwood descended into chaos as the undead roamed the town's streets, leaving a trail of blood and terror in their wake. The living barricaded themselves in their homes, praying for salvation that seemed increasingly elusive. Chelsea and her friends, now separated and terrified, struggled to evade the relentless pursuit of the living dead. As dawn broke, they found themselves cornered in the decaying remains of an old chapel. With bated breath, they clung to the desperate hope that daylight would banish their undead tormentors. But as the first rays of sunlight pierced the chapel's broken stained glass windows, the living dead merely retreated into the shadows, their hollow eyes promising a return with the fall of night. Ashenwood would forever be scarred by that fateful night, a town where the living were forever haunted by the specter of the living dead. And the cursed willow tree, a silent witness to the horror it had unleashed, stood as a grim reminder that some secrets were better left buried in the depths of the earth. In the small forgotten town of Wiltshire Hollow, an eerie legend shrouded the rivers that snaked through its cursed landscape. Locals whispered tales of the rivers of blood, where the waters flowed crimson under the pale moonlight. Few dared to venture near, but curiosity often leads to the most chilling of discoveries. One moonless night, Sarah, a brave but reckless teenager, gathered her friends for a dare. They stood on the riverbank, peering into the dark waters as if beckoned by some invisible force. The river's surface remained placid, a pitch-black mirror, reflecting the starless sky. They laughed nervously until the wind whispered sinister secrets through the gnarled trees. And then it began, a slow, ominous chant, barely audible, but unmistakable. The water seemed to thicken, its surface rippling with an unnatural energy. Suddenly, from the depths of the river, shadowy figures emerged. Faces contorted in agony, their eyes empty sockets and their bony hands reaching upward. The rivers of blood were not just a legend, they were a doorway to a nightmarish realm. Panicking, Sarah and her friends tried to flee, but the riverbank seemed to shift and twist, trapping them in its malevolent grip. The figures, once trapped in the depths, now clawed their way onto the shore. Their wails echoed through the night, mingling with the despairing cries of the trapped souls. As the figures drew nearer, the river water began to creep up their legs, binding them to the cursed earth. The shadows whispered tales of their suffering, recounting the horrors that had led them to this cursed fate. Sarah's friends, their faces twisted in agony, couldn't move, their legs ensnared by the relentless blood. Sarah, paralyzed by fear, watched as the figures closed in on her. Their clammy, skeletal hands reached for her, and she felt the icy grip of death itself. The river seemed to pulse with malevolence, a relentless force dragging her into its abyss. In the end, only silence remained by the rivers of blood. The moon reappeared, casting an eerie glow on the now still waters. The cursed river had claimed its victims, adding to the macabre legend of Wiltshire Hollow, and those who knew the tale would speak of it only in hushed whispers. Knowing that the rivers of blood held horrors beyond imagination, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead dissolved, and the nightmares of the past became a sinister reality.